Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. Mr. Oladapo, you will be talking to us about the ecosystem that is very, very unique that a lot of people don't talk about. We have seen the International Day for the conservation of mangrove ecosystem, but a lot of people don't even know what that means. So you're here and would like to understand what it means to us, especially in 21st century and for those of us living in the city.
All right, thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity. So, International Day for the Conservation of Mangrove Ecosystem is a special day that's set aside by UN, usually commemorated on July 26th. And the aim is just to raise awareness about the global importance of mangrove system, talk about their uniqueness, talk about their importance to human existence, talk about their importance to the species. We have talk about their vulnerability in the ecosystem when they are degraded or over-exploited. And then we also talk about what solutions can we look at to restore mangrove.
Okay, let's come to a practical understanding in layman terms what the mangrove ecosystem entails, especially for those of us right now living in the city. So does it concern those living in urban areas or just those living in rural areas or everyone on earth at this point?
Okay, so when we talk about mangroves, so you are talking about more coastal area. So you are talking about those trees that you have seen that they have their roots shoot out from the water a little above the ground level or the water level. You see them as if the roots are staggers and shrub together. That's mangrove. So that is a layman description of mangrove. So most of the time you see them around very massive water, swamp, and coastal area generally. So that's mangrove.
Okay, what is the importance of this ecosystem to our world? Why should we care so much about it? A lot of people have a lot going on in their minds right now. And if someone is even living close to a coastal area, all they're thinking about is to probably catch the fish in the water or even pollute the water. So we'll get into climate change very soon. But let's talk. Why should people bother about the mangrove ecosystem? What's our business with that?
I like the question. Why should you bother? Why should you care for it? What is the importance, when you have a lot on your head? And you should be thinking about the environment as part of the problem that we have. So mangrove provides shelter or habitation or habitat for species. 1,000 and over 1,000 species you can find around the mangroves. So when we degrade or overexploit the area or we destroy it, it means that those species don't have home again. All of us want to live in a comfortable home. Those species, those shrimp, those crab, those fish, and all manner of things all manner of marine lives that are around that area. When we destroy it, it means that we displace them just like a regular human being. When anything happens and you are thrown out of the house or the building is demolished, begin to cry for crying for help and all. So the same thing for this marine life. Don't let us look at them that, they're just, no, because they are very important. Now, the habitat is serve as habitat for species. Now, some of these species we have, they also serve as source of food for the community dwellers. So it means that when we destroy the place, we don't have food for the community dwellers. They also serve as source of livelihood for the community dwellers because periwinkles that we use for Edeka income is gotten in this area. So you cannot imagine. Can you imagine Edeka income without periwinkle? It is not possible. You know that. So that it means that the ingredient is not complete, so to say. So we have a lot of these species that serve as food and their livelihood for these people because these people pick some of these animals, some of these species and all around this place. So if they don't have them, it means that they don't have anything to survive. So mangrove also serve as, we call it the greatest carbon sinkers. So when we talk about carbon, we talk about the carbon dioxide that we generate, So mangrove absorbs. It's amazing. So, and we also have, mangrove also serve as a shore protection for this coastal line, for the shoreline. By having them, they have not been able to have the water encroaching into community and destroying the nearby communities we have. If those things are taken away, it means that the water will overrun the community, and that's the end. And also ordinary surge that will have happened in the water that will get the whole place devastated. Mangroves provide resistance to some of this surge. When we have heavy rain, the water system takes the water, and we're supposed to be having overflow of water from the rivers and the sea. I'm not sure we have, but because there's mangrove around those, it reduces that possibility of the erosion, you know.
Okay. Something gets to mind every time you keep mentioning that overflow of water, erosion, you know, we already have flood as a situation, at least I can say for Lagos State. And just as the rainy season is coming to an end, or even in the month of July, spanning into August, you can see that some houses, some areas are disrupted because of the flood. Are you saying that this mangrove ecosystem, if is tampered with, I'm going to ask you how we already tamper with it, you know, how people are already destroying it, ways in which people are destroying, but are you saying that if the destruction continues, that it's going to be worse than this? Because we can't deny the flood in Lagos, especially in Lekki and in those parts where water, they have water bodies in mass. So I'd like to ask that, are you saying that, you know, the disruption of this mangrove ecosystem is already affecting us right now?
Yeah, so in some years ago, I think about 2018, the national body predicted that Lagos will be submerged by water in 2050 if care is not taken. And part of the care we need to take is conservation of mangroves. So, like I mentioned earlier, that mangroves, yes.
You mean that water will cover the entire city?
That's the prediction if care is not taken, because we are carrying out a lot of human activities that will lead to that if we are not taken. Currently, like I mentioned, the issue of pollution, we are having the coastal challenges. So if you come around Okwancha and some other coastal communities around those the beach area, you discover that the water has moved from where it used to be and moved quickly. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Lagos State government and federal government are creating groins around the beach so as to stop the wave of the water, you know. So if we are not careful, truly, that the water will run, so the water will take over. So if we continue to destroy the mangroves, so it means that the water will be everywhere. Water we always find its level, as we all know. So if even when we are making effort to create gutter, you know, and when the gutters are not properly managed and people are pouring jets inside gutter, where they block the channel, the flow of jet, so it means that water begins to find its level where you are not blessed. So ordinarily, some of the water that will have been restricted by mangroves, but we don't have mangroves, it means that the water are allowed to go. So definitely we have erosion. That's what it means. It's not only in Lagos, all coastal areas, especially Niger Delta.
Yes, I was going to move to the Niger Delta to talk about it, because already they have the issue of crude oil affecting their water. And when you mentioned periwinkle, that's where it came to, that's the part that crossed my mind, because it's a major meal over there. They have it on their menu big time over there. But let's talk about how people have been deliberately destroying mangrove and what's the mangrove ecosystem and what they are using it for. Maybe they don't know that these trees and this ecosystem is important even for their business. So let's talk about how people have been deliberately tampering with the mangrove ecosystem and how they can stop.
So in major cities like Lagos, like those cities that are having mangroves, what is common is sampling.
Okay.
Cut the trees. Of course, we know deforestation is a major issue for us. Everywhere we have opportunity, people want to cut the tree, either for development, either for personal use, either for firewood, whatever. So we are doing that one. That one is a general knowledge. So as NCF, we are still fighting that collaboration with the federal government, with other agencies. They are trying to stop deforestation and encourage people to make use of other non-timber products. So deforestation is one that's killing it. So because when you talk about mangrove, you're talking about some of those trees that have their roots and shoots. So they are cutting them. That's one. Secondly, is that people are sampling those areas. They want to build. it's now the money backs or developers can come in and say, okay, give the government this money, or give this agency this money, said this way, they will fill the area. What they don't understand that they are causing damage to the ecosystem. So we are also having over-exploitation, the fact that even people who go there that say they depend on it, in farming system, when you farm on a piece of land for now, you're supposed to leave it for a while for that thing to allow it. But we don't do that. A continuous exploitation of that place means that to lead to over-exploitation. Over time, they are not really yielding as it's supposed to. We are having just challenge. And then some other area that will have allowed the mangrove to exist, we are destroying those areas. So when we destroy the area, then we chase away the water from that area. Maybe we sacrifice some other side, the water will come here. So we are having the mangrove will not overdo what it's supposed to do. It cannot overstretch. It has the capacity what it's supposed to provide. So, but some of these challenges we are putting up, it means that it wants to overwork itself, which is not possible. So the amount of water that's supposed to go together, it will not be able to hold it. So definitely we'll see have an overflow. So these are some of the things that we are causing that we to do urgently.
Okay, let's talk about climate change. Aside these activities that we are deliberately doing, cutting down trees and filling and all of those kind of things, is there a way climate change generally is affecting the mangrove ecosystem, and how can we as individuals, as Nigerians, make people know that this is affecting our world? We'll go into pollution very soon. I can picture the Makoko area. I keep going back there because we as High Impact TV have had a visitation to that area. We'll talk about pollution, if it also affects the mangrove ecosystem.
Okay, so when we look at the carbon sinking importance of mangrove, like I mentioned before, that they sink a lot of carbon, and then we don't have mangrove to sink carbon. So what happens to the carbon? It means that the carbon goes to the space or goes to the air. So what does carbon do to the air or to the space we have? It means that it's damaging it. So over time, we're having every downpour that we have as a result of the carbon that we have emitted in the past, not now. The one we are emitting now is waiting for us in the future. So the one that have been emitted in the past is causing the change we are experiencing now. We're having every downpour, the sun is scorching too much, weather is changing, everything's like it's going up and down, and there's people, and in fact, that's why the entire nation is taking the issue of climate change serious. So
let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you. Are you saying that the mangrove ecosystem protects the marine bodies and then protects the air? So it's protecting the water and protecting the atmosphere? Because I really love clean air. Are you saying that this ecosystem, those trees by the side of the waters, are also protecting the air that we breathe?
Yes, by absorbing the carbon, by preventing the carbon we emit, the carbon from the industry, the carbon from our vehicle, the carbon from our generator, the carbon from environment. By absorbing the carbon, they prevent those carbon from eating the air, whereby the climate is going to change negatively against us. So if we don't allow that functionality of the mangrove, so it means in a simple term that we are allowing the climate to change against us. So, nature is good, nature is wonderful. What we just need to do is to allow the mangrove to perform its function, and then they have peace. But when we don't allow it, then we face the music. Unfortunately, it's not mangrove that is going to suffer anyway. But nature, we always find its way. Over time, if we look at what the Bible says in Genesis chapter 8, when we have the flood destroyed the world, Noah and his family were kept in the ark. They were waiting that the water will subside so that it can come out. And then over time, you discover that the water appears or reduced, and over time, you saw that the plant began to grow again. Nature will always find its way. That's how God has created the world. But we won't find our way. When there was erosion, according to the account of the scripture, everybody was wiped up, except those who hid themselves in the ark. So that's what is going to happen. Either we continue to destroy, although we are not saying we should, but if we continue to destroy, over time, mangrove may come back. Exist. It is man that will get destroyed. So the nature will still exist. Only that the nature will exist at the detriment of human. Because when mangrove is not absorbing carbon again, and the climate is changing, so what becomes unbearable? The environment is unbearable. We won't dwell in it. We can't live fine. Our children cannot go to school. You can't go to your place of work. Oh, TV cannot open because maybe the weather has changed terribly. You cannot even move from your house to your station. I can't go to wherever I want to do. I cannot go and do consultation. I cannot do everything I want to do. But the nature will be fine. Over time, they suffer it for a while. Then they bounce back. A human being may not bounce back. And that's why even ordinary sickness that we face, ordinary malaria kill people. How much want the climate to be changed in its entirety? We're going to face a lot of trouble. And that's why we need to take an action.
Okay, let's talk about the actions that we can take. Dealing with pollution, do you find that even throwing things into the water, does it affect this ecosystem? And let's also talk about the economic impact. If we as a nation, as a community, as a society, able to preserve our mangrove ecosystem, we're able to make sure that those trees are in place, is it going to affect, the amount of fishes, crabs, snail, marine life, periwinkles we now have? Are people going to be able to, at least with the cost of crayfish, even go down because it has gone up badly and people are affected?
Okay, what I think, let me say this categorically. Let us change our attitude from I don't care to I care.
Okay.
That's number one. A lot of times people throw things, or carelessly, indiscriminate disposal of waste because we don't care. But when we care, we'll not do that. So when we care about our environment, do what is right, and we live sustainably, it's very, very important. So now, what are the immediate solutions we can think about? Number one is the issue of let's refrain from pollution.
Okay.
Either you're in the city or you're in the coastal area, refrain from pollution. When it becomes part of you, discover that you don't just litter around. Some of these plastic that we just use, just throw them around anywhere, we don't care. They find their way to the water bodies. Then when they find their way, plastic don't degrade. We know that they are about degrading, they are not about degrading. So they don't degrade. So meaning that they don't decompose. So plastic don't decompose. When they find their way to the water body, they stay there for as many years they can exist. Then they break into, because they become soft over time, they break into little particles. So when they break into little particles, the marine life begin to feed on them, assuming that they are food. And when the marine life feed on them, we are going to eat those marine life. We eat fish, we eat periwinkle, all those things. We use the plastic and other things we pour, the oil and others, to pollute the water. We have the one that will not kill the bird directly, like the plastic. They will eventually break into pieces. Those marine life we eat, feed on them. Then we feed on those marine life. Then we are going to have cancer. We can see this, that the thing is a cycle. Now that's one. When they kill the species in the water, so it means that we are not going to have food. It means that those who are depending on mangrove for livelihood are not going to have it. That's what it means. So it just go like that. It's going to affect our economy when they don't have something to sell. So where do they get money? When they don't have something to feed on, how do they eat? Like I mentioned earlier, one key ingredient of edikaikon is periwinkle. So take it away, it's like you have not prepared it. So there are certain things like that you want to do without some of this marine life. You can't do that. That is as important as that.
Oh, wow. That's a very deep conversation. I would have to even say, if it means that we can solve the problem of flooding, I think we would have solved a lot of problem if we're able to deal with this, even if it's just the problem of flooding. But I would like to ask one more question just before we go. People who live on water, there are communities in Nigeria where people actually live there over time, and that is where they stay. Are they also contributing to the destruction of the mangrove ecosystem?
Why do they live there? They are also contributing pollution to the water. A lot of times you discover that many of them excrete there. They wash their clothes, they pour the dirty water there. They do all manner of things there. They are polluting the water. So if we have them live around the mangrove and they are living on the water, they are polluting the water. So what they do is that pollution will eventually kill some of those life, some of those species, marine life. Because we cannot really measure the level of damage, it makes us think or feel that we are not really causing damage. And then sometimes you hear people like saying, that is how our forefathers have been doing it. But that's where we have lived all our life. What else do you want us to do? As if we cannot change. Excuse me, there was no university in Nigeria before. One day we woke up, we started from primary school, government started building primary school, we felt there's a need for us to be educated. Then we became educated from primary, we felt there's a need to move up. We had secondary school, then polytechnic, then university, and like that. So it means that we can actually change. What we just need to do is that, number one, people need to believe that they need to change. And secondly, government be ready to provide that change. Because if you say these people should leave the water body or leave that place, where will they go to? Many of them cannot even afford 3 square meters. Many of them cannot afford affordable accommodation, as little as 1 room. They cannot care for themselves. So government might need to come in. Government has the willpower. Government has the capacity to relocate these people. There was something, I will mention this because it's already in the past. Daniel did something very fantastic in the state when he was governor. He was expanding the road from Shagamu to Abeokuta. So there were a lot of community living along, because that road was there, it was just 1 lane. He wanted to expand it to make it work. So he expanded it. There were certain communities that were very close to those streets. They destroyed their mud houses and built other fantastic buildings for them. You needed to see this thing. You need to see. So, and they took them far away from the main road and took them into the more like in the internet. And they did that, and they constructed those things. And say, wow, that is how to treat people. Because if we tell them to relocate from that place to where, for them to be living in mud house, it also shows to you that they cannot even afford good house, good accommodation. That's what it means. So the government needs to come. So when these people are living on water, government sees them. So what has government? We have land that government can relocate these people and support them. One of the things that NCF does is that we go to some of these communities, especially those ones who depend so much on the coastal area, the mangrove and forest, train them, give them skill empowerment, and we give them fund. Of course, we know we are NGO, so whatever fund is available for us is what we use. We give them fund to dissuade their mind on total dependence on forest and mangroves. But when they are not totally dependent and they have something else to do, they will not keep on destroying the forest and destroying the land. And that's also something that the government or even corporate organization can do. Just locate the community, and you think they are water, you can relocate them. How much will it cost? Come up with it and relocate them. They will be grateful for it. They will be grateful, and you will have done the entire nation a service. And that's how it is.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oladapo, for talking to us about this. The mangrove ecosystem is now very clear to us, and we will not deny that we no longer know what is causing flood in our cities. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for promoting environment matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.